I was just thinking as I was listening to both of you, I was remembering inviting Pam to Italy. And she led us in a wonderful workshop on creating compassionate cultures for quite a few people here in Italy. And it was a fantastic experience. And one of the first things that Pam started with that has always just, it's sort of like got stamped on my brain, I suppose one could say, is that we are all teachers in every moment. We are always teaching. Whatever we're doing, we're transmitting something to the person in front of us. We're also transmitting something to ourselves. And in some ways, that is teaching. That is modeling. That is having an impact on others, certainly, as well as ourselves. And so what I'd like to do with my time today is I'd like to first start with what I'm going with a practice that we do in Sea Learning, which is a grounding practice as well. It's related to resiliency practices based on the new science of trauma. I say new because not just because it's become sort of popular, which is not necessarily a particularly good thing with many things in our world, but also because there are new insights in this field. And this is one of the elements that is incorporated into the approach of Sea Learning. So I'd just like to very kindly invite you to find a comfortable position for your body. We all have different bodies, and what's comfortable for one may not be comfortable for another. But find yourself a position in which you can be comfortable. If possible, you can kind of express your dignity through the position of your body, and find a position also in which you feel kind of stable, not insecure physically. And then just let yourself feel for a moment in your body. Feel the air on your skin. Perhaps feel the touch of your clothing on your skin. Feel whatever sensations arise. You can shift your attention as a particular sensation becomes predominant and another becomes less so. Just let yourself feel your body. Through your sensations. And you might take note how you're perceiving those sensations. Perhaps you're perceiving some as pleasant. And that's okay, just let them be as they are. You might be perceiving sensations, some others as neutral, and others still perhaps as unpleasant. Just let yourself feel them. It's not necessary to do anything about them. Just let them arise and remain if they do so. Just as they are. And I'm going to gradually invite you to shift your attention when you feel comfortable to your body's points of contact. Your buttocks on the chair, for example, your feet on the ground, perhaps your hands resting in your lap or on your legs. And from inside your body, get in touch with those sensations at these points of contact. Allow your body to just settle. Let gravity do its thing. If your mind wanders elsewhere, it's not a big deal. Just take note and gently bring your attention back to where your body is resting. Perhaps you feel a sense of being rooted, being supported. That you can just let your body settle, let go, without fear of falling. A sense of groundedness. And take a moment to kind of open your awareness just a tad and notice, how are you feeling inside in this moment? How does your body feel in this moment right now? How does your mind feel? How does your heart feel in this moment? Okay. Thank you all very much. Thank you for diving into this practice. Um, I'm here to talk to you about a bit about sea learning and my experience of bringing sea learning to Italy. Um, so I'm going to just tell you a little story, first of all, because for if given the group of folks that I see, including many old friends, um, many of us have been following His Holiness forever and hearing His Holiness talk for a long time about the need for a transformation in education, for the need for education to not only train the mind, but also, as we started, educate the heart. And one of His Holiness's quotes about that is, I look forward to a day when children, as a result of integrating the principles of nonviolence and peaceful conflict resolution at school, will be more aware of their feelings and emotions and feel a greater sense of responsibility both toward themselves and toward the wider world. Wouldn't that be wonderful? And so, His Holiness has been talking about this for a long time. And apparently, as I've heard the story, but stories, the nature of storytelling is that stories often change. But as I heard the story, His Holiness, who has a long time relationship with Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia, with the Emory Tibet Science Initiative, found himself at Emory in 2015 with a group of people that were kind of gathered together. And he said, okay, now it's time. I want you to create this program for schools. And I'll be back in 6 months to see just how far you've gotten. Which apparently he actually did. And so this group of people, including folks in the fields of education, pedagogy, psychology, neuroscience, and on, including some luminaries in these fields such as Daniel Goleman and his emotional intelligence crew and others, got to work and created a program that has gone through a number of iterations. It used to be called Secular Ethics in Education. Again, same acronym, SEE. But then at some point that acronym got changed to Social, Emotional, Ethical Learning, Learning, SEE. And in reverse, that's the name of the association that we've created in Italy to bring sea learning to Italy, which is Associazione Educazione Etica, ethics, emotiva, emotional, sociale. So, I could talk to you all day about this program. I find it quite phenomenal because I've seen its iterations over the years. It started out, for those of you who have experience with the Lam Rim and the practices involved in cultivating compassion meditatively, all of that was very transparent and very present in the program from the beginning. And then it went through various iterations in order to become a program more practically applicable in schools with folks who haven't got the same kind of Buddhist background that many of those who are here may have. So, and this is the huge challenge of seed learning, is bringing something to the world that the world doesn't necessarily know it wants or needs. In reality, there's a lot of resistance, a lot of difficulties. Pam undoubtedly has an immense amount of experience with all of that resistance and all of those difficulties. We all do in some way. Seed learning works on bringing to kids the opportunity to develop, in the easiest sense, 5 different skill areas, 5 different categories, you might say, of inner skills, inner abilities. Inner abilities don't come from nothing. So obviously, I mean, not obviously to everyone, but perhaps to us, as we've been discussing this in such a wonderful way for the last hour plus, we have the seeds of all of these skills within us. All of us. We can't put something in that doesn't already have a basis inside. And so the job is to cultivate. The job is to help to flourish that, in some ways, that which is at least potentially already there. And those 5 skill areas are attention skills, the ability to focus, to be present in life, to not be distracted, to as William James, the father of modern psychology, even himself said, the ability to actually continue to bring our attention back to an object repeatedly is the basis for the development of good character, the development of good judgment, the development of critical thinking. All of that is first based on being able to develop attention skills, being able to focus. If we can't focus, all of the rest of it becomes extraordinarily difficult. Secondly, resilience skills. Resilience here has a very broad sense. My sense of resilience skills is, how do we deal with adversity? How do we deal with problems in life? How do we deal with suffering and not get overwhelmed? How can we learn to embrace the difficulties of life and have them become something that enriches our life because it gives our life depth, and our experience and way of dealing with difficulty deepens our humanity in the end. But also, resiliency skills here, which are trauma informed, based on the science of trauma, includes what in seed learning is called body literacy. Understanding one's own nervous system, understanding when our nervous system is out of kilter, which then affects negatively our mind and our ability to make decisions, and being able to bring ourselves back into balance in terms of also in that basic sense of our nervous system, so that everything else can work better and we can have it have available to us the rest of our inner resources, that when we are out of kilter at that most basic nervous system level, are no longer accessible to us. So helping kids to learn about their own nervous systems and how to regulate them, which then, of course, once we expand that, goes into emotional regulation, how to navigate difficult emotions, how to navigate the world of emotions in general, how to work with risky emotions, how to understand what is a risky emotion and why it's risky, how to identify different kinds of emotions. Again, emotion, here we're talking about emotional literacy, which is the third area of cultivating skills within sea learning. The fourth, and the root, the heart, is kindness and compassion. And these filter through all the others. So, and I really related fantastically well with what Pam said about how they start with creating compassionate cultures at Tar Redwood School and other contexts where CCC is being used, because of starting with what kind of classroom do we want. Lo and behold, sea learning does exactly the same thing. So minds who think alike. So, kindness and compassion, how do we not impose any of these things in reality, but how do we work with kids so that they start thinking about these things, as Pam said, start asking why and how and what, and is this important, and well, gee, maybe it is and I never thought it was, and and why do I want people to treat me good, and why aren't I treating other people good like I would like to be treated, and gee, maybe something can change here. All of those things, So kindness and compassion runs through the entire program. And the fifth area of skills that is focused on in sea learning is systemic thinking, and which is very clearly related to understanding interdependence. And as we've talked about, as all of those things are woven together, are integrated together, so we're not doing just one without the others. We're always emphasizing one a bit more, and all the others are a part of what we're doing. Then, slowly, what happens is flourishing of those skills, cultivating those skills, and flourishing of human beings in their humanity. This is the object. Having an objective and then having a starting point and seeing the distance between the starting point and the objective, obviously, then we come down to how do we do this? The how of it. It's lovely to have all the objectives. It's, and it's good to be honest about where we're at. And then there's the road that we travel. And in many ways, the road that we travel as an organization seeking to introduce at least the possibility of this program into not only schools, but educational contexts, wherever they might be, after school programs, summer programs, any kind of, community center situations and so on. Well, the part of the road is the adults, coming back to the teacher, coming back to the parents, and where are we at? Where is our starting place? And again, I go back to that phrase, we are all teaching in every moment. We are teaching how we've been conditioned, and passing on that conditioning, especially if we're not aware of that conditioning in ourselves. So sea learning isn't just for kids. From my perspective, first and foremost, it's for teachers. And then, if we're all teachers, then it's for all of us, And His Holiness's idea, His Holiness's vision was very much rooted in the idea that all of us as human beings, every single one of us, apart from all of those divisions that we tend to want to set up of either nationality or especially of religion. But we all need kindness. We all we all want to be happy. We don't want to suffer. We all, I think, want to live together in harmony. And part of the way to do that, perhaps the way to do that, is to learn how to treat each other, to not harm, and if we can possibly, every once in a while, help, that's great, but at the very least, to not harm. And that comes from ethics. That comes from a sense of harming and empathy with others, and how do I behave? How do I act? On what basis do I make choices in my actions, in how I treat other beings? And all of these things, attention skills, how I deal with adversity and difficulty in moments of, problems, how I work with my emotions, how self-regulated I'm able to be, how much kindness and compassion I've been able to cultivate and put into practice and live in my life. And how do I think about the connections? How do I relate to all of the interconnections between myself and others? All of those things contribute to our ethics, our view of our place in this world, and how we relate to others. See, learning is a complex system. I can tell you from firsthand experience, you want to go into a school and take a mindfulness in schools, program into schools with 8 weeks of 2 times a week. And after 8 weeks, you're done and you you kind of walk away. And, if the school hangs on to it, that's great. And if it doesn't, oh well. And that's generally how it works for many, at least here in Italy, it certainly is, even with serious teachers for mindfulness in schools. See, learning isn't like that. It's much more complicated, as I have no doubt that Pam knows with creating compassionate cultures. What we offer, these kinds of programs, are very complex, and they require a level of commitment and dedication and complexity from those who are putting them into practice, who are using them in their classrooms or in their learning environments. And that means commitment to individual change of oneself, first and foremost. It's a huge thing on the one hand, it's a huge thing we're offering to people. I believe, I believe in my heart. It is an enormous thing that we're offering, but it's also an enormous thing that we're asking to people. That level this is not easy. This is conquering one teacher, one parent at a time, often. And, one by one, hey, up we go, up the mountain. Another, one last thing that occurs to me, that's 2 last things that occur to me, actually. The first is, again, with regard to what it means to teach. Coming back to that image, which from when I was in my 20s, that image that we are not here to pour things into empty vessels. We are here to bring out and help flourish what is already there, as developed or as yet undeveloped, and that's okay. A.S. Neal, apparently super incredible guy, who started Summerhill in England, an alternative school back last century, wrote a book about his experience at Summerhill. I've actually, one of my dearest friends here in Italy actually grew up and went to Summerhill. And I found that out in one conversation with her that was fascinating, frankly. But he wrote, when I read his book, again, one of those things that got stamped on my brain was he said, people don't learn unless they are seeking answers to their own questions. Not your questions, their questions. And so, what's the job of a teacher? Help kids find their questions. Encourage their curiosity. Help them find their questions and then go after the answers. That's all. That's enough. And personally, as a teacher of adults, that has helped me immensely to remember that I'm not the source of all information or the source of perhaps anything. I'm just here to help you find your questions. So, the last thing I wanted to share was one last, I'm not being very organized today. I apologize. It's like there's so much, and sometimes it's really difficult to put it all in order. We are facing in Italy an enormous crisis in schools, but in the family, in society, in this little tiny country. Suicides among young people in Italy since the pandemic went up 20%. 20%. 20% of Italian adolescents show tendencies towards self-harm in various forms. That's 1 out of 5. And in young people from the age of 10 to the age of 25, suicide is the second most frequent cause of death. These are alarming numbers. I don't think this country is alone in this kind of statistic by any means. Kids are crying out for help. To help them understand what they're experiencing inside of themselves, to help them deal with their own emotions and their own fears in a world that is just so confusing and full of violence and a lack of understanding. And this is why we do what we do. I think this is why every single person who I'm looking at on this screen does what you do in your life, because of this level of suffering at all ages in this world. So thank you. Thank you. Ralph Waldo Emerson, great American poet laureate during his lifetime, if I remember correctly, which was many, many, many decades ago. But he said, the great teacher is not the person who supplies us with the most facts, but the one in whose presence we become better people. Thank you all very much.